The ocean was calm that morning, stretched endlessly beneath a sky that looked rehearsed for postcards. From the upper decks, the sea appeared obedient, almost decorative, as if it existed only to accompany the grandeur of the ship. Everything above was designed to feel effortless. Everything below existed to make that illusion possible. She woke up wrapped in silence, the kind only money could buy. The sweet curtains filtered the sunrise into soft gold, touching the silk sheets and the polished wood with the care of something that knew it belonged there. The room carried the faint scent of flowers replaced daily by unseen hands. Her luggage was already perfectly arranged. Her dress for breakfast had been pressed hours before she even opened her eyes. Her life had always been like this. Controlled elegance, predictable comfort. A future drafted by family expectations and signed long before she was old enough to protest. The cruise was not an escape, it was a continuation. Another luxurious corridor in a life built from reservations and confirmations. She moved through the ship as if it were an extension of herself. Lounges welcomed her. Smiles followed her. The staff recognized her family name even before learning her face. She belonged to the visible world, where light lingered longer, where voices carried freely, where nothing important ever stayed hidden. Below, far from the balconies and the sound of champagne glasses, the day had begun hours earlier. He had already been awake while the ship was still asleep. The alarm had vibrated against metal, not wood. The air in his cabin was dense, recycled, carrying the fatigue of men who never fully rested. There was no view of the ocean, only the low hum of engines that never stopped, a mechanical heartbeat reminding him that the ship did not exist for beauty alone. His uniform waited where he had left it, folded with care. It was clean, but worn in ways no detergent could fix. He dressed quickly, efficiently, his movements trained to waste nothing, not time, not energy, not attention. By the time the sun touched the horizon, he was already part of the machinery that allowed others to wake slowly. He walked corridors that curved like veins inside the ship, narrow passages painted in dull colors, doors marked with warnings instead of invitations. The smell of oil, metal, and heat followed him everywhere. These spaces were not meant to be seen, they were meant to function. For passengers, he was part of the background, a moving shape, a uniform, a presence registered only when something went wrong. His name was irrelevant, his story invisible, and that was how it was supposed to remain. The first moment did not announce itself as important. It arrived quietly, disguised as coincidence. She had taken a wrong turn. The ship, despite its size, had been designed to guide passengers gently, almost unconsciously, toward beauty. But curiosity had always been her small rebellion. She wandered away from the main deck, past a door she assumed would lead back to the elevators. Instead, it opened into a transitional space, too plain, too narrow, too honest. The air changed immediately. She hesitated, sensing she did not belong there. The walls lacked decoration. The carpet was gone, replaced by a harder surface that echoed her steps. The noise of the ship grew louder, more exposed. For the first time since boarding, she felt seen in the wrong way. He was coming from the opposite direction, pushing a cart filled with supplies. He noticed her instantly, not because she was beautiful, though she was, but because she was impossible. Passengers did not enter this part of the ship, especially not passengers dressed like her, carrying the confidence of someone used to being exactly where she was allowed to be. For a fraction of a second, both of them froze. The rules of the ship were clear, even if unspoken. There were places where worlds touched only through service, never through recognition. His job trained him to lower his gaze, to move aside, to let privilege pass uninterrupted. But something disrupted that reflex. Her eyes lifted first, surprised, curious, unguarded. She was not afraid. She was confused. as if she had accidentally stepped behind a stage curtain and discovered the play was real. He straightened slightly, instinctively, not in defiance but in awareness. He felt exposed, like a secret suddenly illuminated. No words passed between them. None were allowed. None were needed. She nodded faintly, almost apologetically, as if acknowledging she had crossed an invisible boundary. He responded with a subtle movement, guiding his cart closer to the wall, creating space for her to pass. As she walked by, their proximity collapsed the distance between their worlds into a single breath. She noticed details she had never noticed before. The tiredness beneath his composure, the small stain on his sleeve, the way his hands carried strength without ornament. He was real in a way her world rarely allowed. He noticed her perfume, delicate but restrained. The confidence in her posture, learned over years of being watched. The softness that had never needed to harden. She moved like someone who had never had to hurry. When she disappeared around the corner, the corridor felt suddenly smaller. He stood there longer than necessary, the cart forgotten, the engine's vibration louder than before. He told himself it meant nothing, an accident, a mistake corrected. She returned to the brightness of the upper decks, but something had shifted. The laughter around her felt louder, sharper. The luxury felt performative. For the first time, she was aware of the effort hidden beneath the surface. She did not know his name. She did not know his role. She only knew that the ship had revealed a crack, and through it, a life that did not resemble hers at all. That night, as the ship moved forward through the dark water, both of them lay awake in separate worlds, thinking of a moment that should have dissolved, but didn't. The days that followed tried to erase what had happened. Schedules resumed their authority. The ship was vast, and vigilance was never complete. Their second encounter was less accidental. She waited near a service stairwell, heart unsteady, rehearsing excuses she hoped she wouldn't need. When he appeared, carrying equipment heavier than her entire suitcase, recognition passed between them instantly. There was no shock this time, only awareness. They stood close enough to feel each other's presence, separated by nothing but fear. She moved first, the invisible labor that kept her glass filled, her bed perfect, her life uninterrupted. Curiosity turned into awareness, awareness into intention. She began to linger near transitional spaces, pretending to admire art that wasn't there, walking slower than necessary, choosing routes that offered no real view. She told herself it was coincidence, habit, boredom. It wasn't. He felt it too, the sense of being watched without being seen. He caught glimpses of her at impossible angles. Reflections in polished metal, the edge of a doorway, a silhouette framed by light where light usually didn't reach. Each time, his body reacted before his mind could stop it. The rules were clear. Interaction with passengers was limited, monitored, discouraged. Relationships were forbidden, not just by policy, but by structure. The ship itself enforced separation. Different elevators, different staircases, different hours of existence. Still, the ship followed its predetermined path. She attended dinners, excursions, carefully curated experiences meant to feel spontaneous. He worked long shifts that blurred together, each task stacking upon the next without recognition. Yet the ship had changed, or perhaps they had. She found herself noticing things she had never noticed before. Doors marked crew only, staircases that disappeared downward instead of upward. The way certain hallways seemed to swallow people whole, stepping aside to allow him through, deliberately slower than courtesy required. He paused just long enough to acknowledge the choice. The space filled with unspoken questions. The ship vibrated beneath them, a reminder that time did not stop for curiosity. He passed her, but this time their eyes met fully. The look they shared was not flirtation. It was acknowledgement, a silent agreement that something existed now, whether allowed or not. From that moment, The ship became a map of possibilities. They learned its rhythms separately, when security was lighter, when corridors emptied, when noise covered presence. They never planned, they adapted. Each encounter was brief, charged, and unrepeatable. No touching, no names, no promises, yet each moment carved itself deeper than the last. She began to feel the weight of concealment. Every return to her family felt like crossing a border. Their expectations pressed against her chest, heavier than before. The future they discussed over dinner felt distant, scripted, untouched by the reality growing quietly inside her. He felt the risk in his body, the tightening of awareness, the knowledge that a single report, a single glance from the wrong person could end everything, his contract, his livelihood, his place in the world. Still, he found himself drawn back, again and again, to the spaces where she might appear. The ship watched them both, not as a witness, but as a constraint. Each deck they crossed in opposite directions became an act of defiance. Each shared glance stretched the distance between who they were and who they were expected to be. They had not touched, they had not spoken, but they were already crossing lines. Eventually, avoidance became impossible. The ship offered fewer hiding places the closer they grew. Familiarity sharpened desire, and desire demanded proximity. The risk escalated not because they were careless, but because they were human. Their first true moment of closeness happened deep within the ship, where the sound of engines erased any chance of being overheard. A narrow platform near the machinery, hot and loud, a place no passenger would ever choose to be. She arrived there shaken, her dress out of place, breath uneven. It had taken courage to step so far beyond her world. He found her already there, surprised but not unprepared. He had imagined this moment too many times to pretend otherwise. The space was unforgiving, metal underfoot, air thick with heat. No romance, no softness, and yet it was the most real place either of them had ever been. They stood close, closer than ever before, aware that discovery here would be unforgivable. The ship roared around them, indifferent to consequence. She felt the truth settle into her body. This was not a fantasy. This was not rebellion for its own sake. This was connection born in the wrong place, between the wrong people, at the wrong time. He understood something equally devastating. She was not playing a game. The fear in her eyes matched his own. The stakes were shared now. They did not touch. But the absence of touch carried more weight than any physical contact could have. The restraint hurt. The silence pressed against them, heavy with things unsaid. From that moment on, the ship stopped being neutral. Eyes lingered longer. A supervisor's glance felt sharper. A family member's presence loomed heavier for her. The margin for error shrank with every passing day. The ship that had brought them together now tightened around them like a closing fist, and both of them knew without saying it that the end was no longer distant. The ship had always been alive, but now it felt alert. Corridors no longer felt neutral. Cameras seemed more visible. The rhythm of footsteps carried meaning. What once passed unnoticed now registered as threat. Every movement required calculation. Every pause invited suspicion. She began to feel the strain in her body before she understood it in her mind. Sleep came late and shallow. Meals tasted distant. Her family noticed her distraction, mistaking it for boredom, for restlessness, for the predictable impatience of someone who had been given too much for too long. They spoke about future plans, about investments, about connections waiting back home. Each word landed on her like a reminder of gravity. She smiled when expected. She nodded at the right moments. She played her role perfectly, but inside, something had already detached. For him, the pressure took a different shape. His days grew heavier, his attention sharper. He noticed the small changes that only someone accustomed to survival would see. A co-worker lingering longer than necessary, a supervisor asking questions without asking them directly, the subtle shift in atmosphere that meant someone had begun to observe. He stopped lingering where she might appear, not because he wanted to, but because fear had finally found its voice. The absence hurt more than proximity ever had. The places where they had almost collided now felt empty, stripped of meaning. He passed them like a man walking through ruins, aware of what had once stood there. She noticed immediately. The ship felt wrong without those fleeting moments. The silence between them stretched too long, heavy with unfinished intention. She tried to tell herself this was relief. That distance was safety. That forgetting was possible. It wasn't. Their worlds continued to orbit the same steel body, and eventually gravity pulled them back together. It happened during an evening event, one of those gatherings designed to remind passengers of why they belonged where they were. Music filled the upper decks, light reflected off crystal and skin. The illusion of effortlessness reached its peak. She stood among people who knew her name, her lineage, her worth. Yet her eyes searched instinctively for what she knew she would not find there. Below, he moved through a service corridor adjacent to the event, coordinating logistics, adjusting systems, ensuring perfection he would never witness. The sound of laughter seeped through the walls, distant and distorted. At a crossing point meant only for function, their paths aligned once more. This time there was no pretense of accident. They stopped. The space between them pulsed with urgency. The ship's vibrations wrapped around them like a warning. She saw the change in him immediately. The restraint sharpened into something closer to pain. The ease of their early encounters had been replaced by caution, by something learned the hard way. He saw it in her, too, the way her composure strained at the edges, the effort it took for her to remain untouched by what was happening. This moment could not be prolonged. Every second was a risk, and yet neither moved. The realization arrived without words. This was no longer about curiosity. This was no longer about chance. This was attachment, and attachment was dangerous. They separated abruptly, without resolution, without reassurance. The distance returned, heavier than before. But now it carried a deadline. The days began to count themselves down. The itinerary marked progress toward the final destination, but for them, time moved differently. Each sunrise felt like subtraction. Each sunset closed another door. She began to understand what she stood to lose in concrete terms. Not abstract privilege, but relationships, trust, the fragile balance that kept her life smooth and unquestioned. Her family's name carried weight, and weight crushed anything beneath it. What she felt could not be explained without consequence. He felt the choice pressing in a more immediate way. Contracts ended quickly. Rumors traveled faster than truth. One accusation, even unproven, could follow him beyond this ship, beyond this job, into a future already fragile. What existed between them did not fit into either world, and the ship offered no mercy. The moment everything shifted came without drama. A glance held too long, a movement noticed by the wrong eyes, a question asked casually with no accusation but enough curiosity to destabilize everything. From that moment on, they were no longer invisible. He was reassigned without explanation. Different hours, different routes, a separation designed to look like coincidence. He understood the message clearly. She felt it too, though no one spoke to her directly. The atmosphere around her tightened. Family members watched more closely. Invitations narrowed, freedom thinned. The ship was closing ranks. They had one opportunity left. A final port, a controlled chaos of departure and arrival, luggage, distraction, transition, a moment when the ship would be too busy to care. They did not plan it together. They simply knew. The night before arrival carried a strange stillness. The ocean was dark, endless, indifferent. The ship cut through it with practiced confidence, unaware that for 2 lives within it, this was the edge of something irreversible. She stood alone on a quiet deck, far from the celebration happening elsewhere. The wind pressed against her dress, grounding her, reminding her she existed in a body capable of choosing. He reached the same place from below, using routes he knew would soon no longer belong to him. Their final meeting was stripped of illusion. No fantasy remained, no hope of rewriting reality, only truth. They stood close enough to feel the warmth of each other without touching. The restraint was no longer fear-based, it was acceptance. This love had not come to save them, it had come to reveal them. She understood now that returning to her world unchanged was impossible. Even if she complied, even if she followed every expectation, something essential had already broken open. He understood that walking away did not mean forgetting. It meant carrying the mark of something rare, something that would inform every choice afterward. They did not promise anything. They did not pretend this could be fixed. The ship moved forward, uncaring, unstoppable. When they separated, it was not dramatic. It was precise, necessary, the hardest kind of ending. Morning arrived without ceremony. The destination appeared on the horizon, solid and undeniable. The ship slowed, the illusion dissolved. Passengers prepared to return to their lives, refreshed, unchanged, satisfied. She stood among her family as they disembarked, posture perfect, expression composed. No one could see what had shifted beneath the surface. No one knew what she was leaving behind. He exited hours later, through a different gate, with the rest of the crew. His uniform no longer felt like protection. It felt like evidence of a life he would now have to redefine. They did not look for each other. They did not need to. The distance between them expanded into something permanent, something unbridgeable. But it did not erase what had been formed. Years later, she would still recognize the sound of engines as something intimate. He would still feel the ocean as a place of both beginning and loss. Some loves are not meant to survive the world. They exist to fracture certainty, to expose the cost of belonging, to leave a permanent ache where innocence once lived. They descended into separate futures, marked forever by a love that never belonged to the light. And the ship sailed on, carrying nothing but echoes,